Things up. I'm your host, Michael Felder. We're powered by Bet Rivers, and you can always find us on SiriusXM. We're also live via YouTube and Twitter, and we got some stars here, right? We got a quarterback tight end combo. So we got Trevor Knight, former OU and A&M QB, Field of 12 CFP analyst. Trevor, what's up, man?
What's up, Felder? Good to be back on with you, man. Like I always say on our Wednesday shows that I get to be a part of, it's the best show of the week. Got a little look back, got a little look forward, right in the middle. Let's rock and roll, man.
It's literally a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, and we're going to be knocking it out. Jake Butt, Big Ten Network, Stadium College Football Analyst as well. Jay Booty88 on Twitter, the best handle in the game. What's up?
Good to be here with you guys, man. Coming down the stretch. Finish strong.
Dude, can I just ask you guys something real quick before we get into the rundown? Because we got a lot in the rundown. We're gonna talk about the week that was. We're gonna talk about the week that is. We're gonna talk about all that stuff. But man, right now, the weekend before Thanksgiving weekend, how's your body feeling if you're a college football player putting in them hours?
Man, I'll answer that first. I wore a red jersey, okay, at practice.
Yeah.
I didn't have to stick my hand in the dirt week in and week out. I don't know how I could have, because I ran the ball enough in college to know that one day a week, Saturdays, was enough for me, man. Walking around, you got aches and pains. You're in the training room every chance you possibly can be. For some people, if they really are banged up, they're taking certain medicines, getting certain shots, getting certain treatments so they can make it through the stretch here, because this is crunch time. This is crunch time, and a lot of stakes are extremely high at this point in the season.
Jake, you're doing 9-on-7s, dog.
Yeah. I will say, Trevor, I'll give you some credit, because I would say as a quarterback, you got to be pretty relaxed in the pocket. So when you do get hit, it's awkward. Like, you can't tense. Like, if I'm going over the middle, you're taking a shot, but at least I can tense up my body and prepare for it. I kind of feel like it's kind of like the law of diminishing returns, though. At some point, you talk about a callus in football, and like, yeah, you get sore, but I think week over week, the amount of soreness you feel, it's not drastic. Like week 1 to week 2, like, man, you're a little sore. Week 2 to week 3, as you go throughout the season, it gets a little bit better. I think the big point, though, is your strength. That's what's really reduced. Like, you can't go in the weight room. You can't lift. You can't push those numbers just because of the way your body's feeling. So you got to find other ways to win at this point. It's kind of a little bit here, a little bit there that makes you have to dig a little bit deeper at this point in the season.
I'll say this too. I know it was this way in Norman, Oklahoma, and I bet it was 10 times as worse in Ann Arbor, Michigan for Jake. But this time of year, when you're going out to practice every day and it is freezing cold, there's nothing fun about that. There's absolutely nothing fun about that. Midweek, don't get me wrong, on Saturdays, man, you get your adrenaline going, it's game day, but midweek practices in the freezing cold are absolutely no fun.
I loved them. I'm an Ohio guy. I love the cold.
You're one of those crazy dudes. You got hit in the head too many times.
Well, Felder, you used to be a Chicago resident. We got our first like legit snowfall. Yeah. It's pretty cold out, and man, I'm walking around. I take the dogs for a walk in the neighborhood. Like, I just put on a light jacket. This is a lot for me right here. I got a little vest on, but I kind of like the cold.
Listen, I'm a shorts boy. I wore shorts. They call me shorts.
There we go.
They call me shorts guy in my neighborhood. I throw a Carhartt on, take the dog out for a walk, no big deal. January, February, no big deal. But the big thing for me was, it's not football weather. It's not football weather. Because you play your weather.
Actually, this is a good question, because I saw some people, there's a wide range of opinions.
Football weather is somewhere between probably 55 degrees and 65 degrees. Great. Where you feel comfortable in your pads. You can wear a long sleeve if you want, but you don't need a long sleeve. And if you're one of those, those guys that get worked up, I think this is Jake. Jake, I think this is you. You get worked up in warm-ups.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to get worked up in warm-ups and be pouring sweat and get it going, you can do it. Yeah. But if you're one of those guys that's a laid-back guy, you're like Dion, you're like laid back, like, no, I'm cool, I'm good. Like cheetahs don't stretch either, then you're okay too. and you're not cold. And I think that's what it is. You can't keep telling me that this is football weather when it's horrible weather and the football is bad.
I'm with you. I say that because someone put on Twitter football weather 70 degrees and sunny. Like, nah, man, it's not played in a dome. Like football, you need a little bit of adversity. All right, 55 degrees. It's not warm. It's not cold. You can work with that. I also got a pretty long neck right here. So I liked when it got to 55 because I could wear that, the little the
mock.
It helped me out a little bit on TV for the close-ups. Like it wasn't like, what's this big bobblehead guy doing out there? So I liked it when the temperature dropped a little bit.
Hey, 55 to 65 is fine with me. Just keep the wind away. Me and the kickers, we don't like the wind. Just keep that away. We're good to go.
I don't like it either because then we can get in. We can run our full pass playbook. I like a low wind day as well.
There we go. So we've established. Guess what? Driving rain and crazy snow, not football weather. No. The best weather for football is like right in the middle where you can just like run your whole playbook. And also the players can wear what they want to wear. Yes. All right. So guys, we got a lot to get to. We're going to start with our toast of the night. Before we get to our toast of the night, I do just want to say, we are going to toast to Virginia. They're going through a hard time, and it's a tragedy. And I just want to say, I want to toast to them first, and then we can get on. We're going to get on with the show, so we can have some fun. So we did that, and it's going to be really interesting to see if they play the game this weekend. All right, let's get into it now. Toast of the night. If you got to toast to something, what are you toasting to?
I'll go first here. I'm going to go down to the southeastern part of the country to a coach that used to coach in the SEC, got fired, and is now, to me, looking like he is having the time of his life as a coach. That's Gus Malzahn.
Yeah, I saw it coming.
Him this week. We've been saying that week in and week out, but 8-2 record. Big win over a really good Tulane team this week. And the guy's got a smile on his face. Yeah. He's not involved in the turmoil there at Auburn. I think he's absolutely living the life there at UCF, and they're playing really good football. So a toast to Gus Malzahn. I know that his stress level is way down this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jake, what you got?
Want to do a toast to probably one of the less talked about reasons, and ESPN just came out with a good article about him, but one of the big parts that Michigan's been able to elevate the program to the next level, a guy by the name of Biff Poggi, who is now, I think he's headed to Charlotte to be the next head coach. And his story is he was kind of working out on the East Coast out in Maryland as a high school coach. And St. Francis, Gilman, couple high schools out there, and then his son Henry Poggi was my roommate at Michigan, so he ended up being this associate head coach for Jim Harbaugh. I will say this though, the one thing I want to talk about for Biff is when you think of a coach, he's got the X's and O's, but that's not the first thing I think of. I think of a man that when you converse with him, he sees you as a human being. When you ask him a question, he is honest with you, even if that honesty isn't what you want to hear in the moment. And you know day in, day out that this guy wants the best for you throughout football, throughout life. And that is not common, believe it or not, in the coaching practice. And that dude will send ripples of goodness throughout the world. Coaching has such impact on players, and players grow up to be men and fathers and leaders in themselves. And I want to give credit to Biff Poggi, a guy that, he did it the hard way. He committed to it the long way. He never talked about himself, and now he's getting the recognition he deserves. And I'm all for that. So toast to Biff.
I'm doing that right there for that one.
I love it. I'll add on to that just because that strikes a chord with me. You said something. Coaching really does have much more of an impact than the X's and O's. And I know we know that. We toss that around. But especially nowadays, with how much these head coaches and even assistant coaches are getting paid, I think a lot of people outside of the locker rooms they look at these coaches as superstars and as movie stars. And yes, they are that, and they're making that kind of money. But the good ones out there, regardless what their paycheck is, are still teaching life lessons. And I know you're still getting that, obviously, at the high school rank. I can look back in my career, and I know you guys both can as well, and think about a moment or a day or even a season or maybe even a full career of being around a certain coach or multiple coaches. And you're like, I'm a better man because of that guy. I learned that lesson because of that guy. When I showed up and he told me this when I was walking through this season of life, whether it was a super high or a super low, he's the reason that I have that mentality nowadays. And I hate that we're getting away from that. And we're all talking about NIL and money and this and that. Sports are such a great parallel to life, and coaches play a huge part in that. And they still do, even if they're living in $17 million houses and what have you.
I'm going to say this. I'm Gunnar Brewer. And it's Jake, you brought it up. And obviously, Trevor, you mentioned teaching. So I'll go with Jake's point first, because Coach Brewer is a guy who calls me on my birthday. He asks how my mom and dad are doing. He knows that I have a little brother. And this is for someone, I wasn't as good as you guys in college. Okay? Like, I wasn't a star. Nobody knew my name. But he was a guy that recruited me. He's the guy that brought me into the office and said, hey, man, do you want to play football here or not? And I said, yeah, I do. And he goes, okay, let's do it. And he's at Maryland now, but he calls me every year on my birthday. When he's in Charlotte recruiting, we go out to dinner together. Like, that's it. Like, that guy knows, like, what's going on in my life. Years removed. I'm 38. What the hell is he got to do with a 38-year-old? Nothing. I can't. There's nothing I can give him. I got a daughter. My kid's not even going to play football. Like, that's it. And it's huge. And then I also think about, and this goes a long way, and we got to get into the show, I know, but I think about Corey Holiday, and I think about Rick Steinbacher and these guys, Coach Tate. They, like, when I was going through a rough spot, and you mentioned it, Trevor, when I was going through a rough spot as a player my freshman year, because it's hard. And you guys, I'm sure you guys understand this. When you're a freshman, you're not getting in the game. You're used to being the star from high school. And they were like, Felder's having a rough time with this. He doesn't know what he's going to do. They helped get me into sports. They helped me get me into sports therapy. They got me into sports psych, so I could, like, reevaluate everything that was going on. And it saved my life. It changed my life. So no, I do think that Jake, you're spot on. Like, these guys that are teachers, not coaches, teachers, and they teach the game, but they also teach you life. I think that means a lot.
100%. Yeah, man. It's I don't think coaches, maybe there's some that do, but like most coaches, maybe, and I don't know if I can blame them. They're so hyper focused on the X's and O's and the surface stuff. And there is a time and a place for that. But there is, the things I remember from coaches have nothing to do with the game of football and nothing to do with what happened on the field. And the things that drive me now that I'm not playing football anymore, like as a fiance, as a man, as maybe a father one day, like, those are the things that matter. And I didn't know it at the time, but when a coach actually cares about you, even if you do it selfishly, I will play so much harder for you if I know you care about me as a player. If I know you look me in the eyes and say, how are you doing? How's your mom? Just like you said, just something that seems so insignificant. I am going to play so much harder for you in a game of football where there is an element of fear and courage, and there is an element of danger. Man, you care about me? Cool. I'll go put my body on the line for you. Just a little thing can go a long way.
Bingo, dude. So everybody, cheers to that. Come on. All right, let's get into the rundown now. All right, we got college football rankings. No change in the top 5. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, TCU, Tennessee. No change in that. And then we've got LSU moving up, USC moving up, Alabama moving up, Clemson moving up, Utah, Penn State, Oregon dropping down, UNC moving up, which becomes an interesting one because I want to talk about that. Actually, you know what? I hope Dagan doesn't get upset, but here's what I'm going to say. UNC, Kansas State, and Kansas State's an interesting one because they have 3 losses. But if we go LSU, Alabama, UNC, and Kansas State, what do we expect out of those as our dark horse candidates? Trevor.
I think that UNC is the only dark horse in that group that really has a shot to make some waves, right? If Kansas State goes and wins the Big 12 and beats TCU, Kansas State's not going to the college football playoff.
Got it.
If UNC goes and beats Clemson in the title game, there will be a conversation. I still don't think they get in, but I think it warrants a seat in the conversation where they will spend a good amount of time discussing that one. Those are the only 2 to me that really have a shot of creating some waves and different, right? UNC shot to maybe even have a seat at the table. Kansas State really is just a season ruiner and a potential college football playoff ruiner for TCU.
What about Penn State, Jake?
So I same thing. I just think that the gap now to be gained, it's just too far. I think if you're Ohio State or Michigan, though, if you're a fan of the Big Ten Conference or a fan of those 2 teams, you're rooting for Penn State to be dominant down the stretch because that makes that win for both those. That's both Ohio State and Michigan's marquee win this year. So I'm calling their Rutgers game this weekend, and I just find this interesting. It doesn't have to do with this year, but as I was looking at their roster, I was blown away by how much young talent they have. They are returning so many, not just like starters, guys that pop and flash on film.
Yep.
And I mean, playmakers, 2 young running backs, couple receivers, tight ends, offensive lines as healthy as it's been. I know people say what you want about Sean Clifford. He's been an excellent leader. He's tough as nails, and that's going to be valuable for their talented freshman, Drew Aller, coming up. So that program is in a very, very good place going forward for years to come. And if they can get to 10 wins going into the bowl game, which it seems likely that might happen, oh, man. Now you've set the standard for this young talent coming off of the season they had last year to then elevate those guys. Those young guys have perspective of what losing looks like, what winning looks like. I say they're not getting into the playoff no matter what happens, but that's a team to really, we're going to be talking about them after that last whistle is blown and call it the college football season this year. That's a serious contender going forward next year.
Let's go.
Can I ask you that real quick? You're the Big Ten expert, Jake. You mentioned going into next year and the youth at Penn State, but they do lose Sean Clifford. So let's just look at the Big Ten East and these 3 teams: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State. Going into next year, who has the biggest leg up? Because we assume that CJ Stroud is gone. Sean Clifford also gone, right? So you do have J.J. McCarthy. Blake Corum probably gone. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that you all 3 lose a significant player. Michigan brings back a quarterback. Who is it Penn State, based on what you just said, that has the leg up in that 3-headed race?
It's been right now, and this is, I got to check myself because I'm doing a deep dive on Penn State. So everything I'm seeing, like, I'm starting to fall in love with these guys.
Yes.
And I also know the way Ohio State's been, where it's like, yeah, CJ Stroud's gone. Well, it's always just been the next man up. You know, they got NFL dudes on their sideline, and until that's proven to be wrong, I'm going to believe that to be truth. And then, you know, for Michigan, frankly, they showed so much this year. You know, I think the sign of a healthy program, it's the greatest compliment to have head coach vacancies come and pluck from your staff, or coordinator vacancies come and pluck from your staff. And Michigan reloaded both their coordinators this year, and they didn't miss a beat. They've actually elevated their game in some ways. To go back to Penn State, one thing to consider is Manny Diaz is their defensive coordinator, the former head coach at Miami. I imagine he gets head coach consideration this year because he's done a phenomenal job with that defense. So long-winded answer. Going into this year, I don't know one person that covered the Big Ten that didn't say it was Michigan and Ohio State and then Penn State and others. I think next year you have to bottle those three in together, and we'll see where the dust settles when they play each other.
I agree with you. I dig that. I love that they've got this young talent bubbling up. I'm curious to see. I think Manny Diaz stays there, and I think that they're going to continue to grow on defense. I am curious to see what it looks like without Sean Clifford, because he does feel like the glue that's held a lot of things together. All right, so we got that. So we also have the top four. So if we get into the top four and you look at the matchups based on what it is right now, Georgia, TCU, Ohio State, Michigan, and I guess we've got multiple questions here. One, does TCU have a chance to get Georgia? Does Michigan have a chance to get against Ohio State? How do you view it, Trevor? Jake, I know you got a lot going on right now.
You're talking about
you got a lot to think about,
right?
How it is today.
Because obviously the cool part about this top four is we're going to get to see the 2-3 matchup in the regular season. That's awesome. That's going to be man, I will be locked to the TV screen on that day.
I can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
So that one speaks for itself, right? I mean,
that's can I go time out? Are you guys Thanksgiving guys?
I love Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a big Thanksgiving guy. Like my birthday, that's actually my Friday is my birthday. That Friday is my birthday.
Okay.
So I'm like I love Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday of the year. I just wanted to get that out because I'm hearing people be like, I'm ready to get to Christmas. And I'm like, no, there's another thing in between.
Thanksgiving now, and I'll be real short-winded on this, not to get derailed, but Thanksgiving to me sets the tone for the holiday season leading up to Christmas. And it's better as an adult because when you're younger, it's like you don't get presents. There's good food, but you're just kind of sitting there. As an adult now, you literally sit there with your family. I get to sit there with my brothers and my dad and my aunts and my uncles, and I get to sip on an adult beverage, and we get to talk about adult things, and we get to watch ball.
Yeah.
Like, it's the great, and eat good food. It's the greatest.
Yeah.
It's the greatest.
I just associate Thanksgiving with meaningful football. At this point, it's meaningful football, and the pressure and the stakes are high. So in a sense, Christmas is Christmas, but Thanksgiving is meaningful football.
Yep, no doubt. So to answer your question, 2 versus 3 matchup, Ohio State, Michigan. That speaks.
We'll see it. We get to see it, so we don't have to talk about that one.
We don't have to
Let's talk Georgia, TCU.
Georgia, TCU, which it could be possible. Could be possible. Obviously, Ohio State or Michigan's going to be out, but they could plug somebody else in ahead of TCU, depending on what they think. It's possible. At this point, I'll say this. TCU has shown me a ton. Yeah. I am extremely impressed with the way that they played this past week, given that it is Sonny Dykes. We can't forget, and I said this a few days ago, we can't forget that TCU is known for their defense because of Gary Patterson.
Yep.
Sonny Dykes comes from the air raid tree. He is not a defensive coach.
Right.
So the fact that they played as well as they did on defense against Texas this past week shows me that they are legit. That being said, against a lot of teams, yes, it's going to be a good game. Against Georgia, no. Georgia will run away with that one, in my opinion.
All right. Let me. I feel like I've both given TCU credit, but both the flip side, not given them enough credit throughout the year. Where it's like, you know what, I always say TCU deserves to be there, but like I kind of end it there. I thought last weekend was a huge step. Texas at home is a different team. Texas at home had been playing really good football. Going into the game, I thought Bijan Robinson,
209 yards the week before.
And didn't even have 30.
Nope.
Yeah.
Texas as an entire offense didn't have 200. Quinn Ewers has been a different quarterback at home, and they shut him down. I'm confident they're going to be able to put up 25 points on any given night, even against Georgia. They can get to that 25-point mark. But can their defense hold tight? And I think they took a big step forward. So I don't want to discredit them. I don't want to say that this is a foregone absolute conclusion, though. If I had to bet, I had to put my money on something, it would be Georgia.
Let me add one more thing to that.
No problem.
The one thing that made me nervous, as good as TCU's defense played, the thing that made me nervous is Max Duggan took a step back to me. I thought he didn't play very well at all.
Right.
The moment seemed a little too big for him. The pressure was a little big on his shoulders. Hopefully for that ball club, that was all right, welcome to the show. Pressure's on. Media's talking about you every week. Let's get that one out of the way. Now let's just settle down and go play ball. But I didn't think he played all that well. Jake?
But does that not happen to every single quarterback at least once?
Good point.
But Kendrick Miller steps up.
I hated this line as a player, but I'm a what have you done for me lately kind of guy now.
It's true.
But here's the thing.
Let's see how he plays this week. Going on the road, another road game. Baylor didn't look great last week, but let's see, can he bounce back this week? I will panic with you and question
saying Baylor didn't look great last week is
might be a little easy on him.
You're taking it easy on him. But I will say this, Kendrick Miller stepped up in a huge way.
Yeah.
And that's why they got over the hump. So we're talking about TCU. We talked TCU versus Georgia. If you're a team and you get to design a team, right? You're a coach, you get to design a team. Jake, I'm gonna kick it with you first. How do you beat Georgia?
So when you look at where Georgia struggled this year, you go back to Kent State, Missouri, and Florida, and you say, why do they struggle? And I think the common theme is turnovers. When they've been turning the ball over and they've been giving the ball away, they've let teams hang around.
Sure.
I don't know that you can emphasize it during the week. That doesn't always translate. Turnovers are a funny thing where you can't exactly quantify it or say this is the one thing we do. You just have to take advantage when the opportunities are there. You have to, if the ball carrier is loose with the ball, it has to be a point of emphasis to not just bring down the tackle, try to punch at it while you're there. If you could force some turnovers, and I guess it's not only isolated to Georgia too, turnover margin is one of the best analytics to
it's one of the biggest indicators of success.
100%. That would be your one thing you would say. And when you're TCU, you also it works in unison with the fact that you're an explosive offense where it's like, hey, if we can take scoring opportunities away, give our offense more scoring opportunities and take advantage of that, I think you've got a pretty solid chance of at least having a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. Turnover margin has been the key indicator for where Georgia struggled this year.
Trevor, how do you beat Georgia?
Yeah, I'll piggyback off of your answer there, Jake. I think that what Georgia has going for them right now is, despite some of the turnovers, they're riding this wave. And I've mentioned it multiple times this year as the been there before wave. The moment's never going to be too big for Georgia this season because of what everybody on that roster was a part of last year. Now, some of those guys may have been standing on the sidelines. There's a few of those guys that are freshmen that weren't there, but everybody has been there before. And so it's not a week-to-week thing for them. They're just riding this wave that's started way out, in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, and it's working its way in to crash on the shore, right? So creating turnovers and creating adversity, I think, early in the game. Matching their intensity, but not even just matching it, but having more intensity. Coming out and just punching them in the mouth, getting them shocked, getting their head spinning in a 15-round prize fight, and just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. If anybody on the opposition is not walking out of that stadium with zero energy, looking themselves in the mirror saying, I left everything out on the field, they're not going to be walking out there winning. That's how good Georgia is. But they are gettable. I don't know if they're beatable yet, but they're gettable. So I will agree with you. Creating turnovers may be the only way to beat Georgia at this point.
So I want to dive a little deeper into this, Trevor, because you mentioned punching them in the mouth, and you talked about turnovers, and Jake mentioned turnovers. If you're a coach, what's your game plan offensively to attack this defense?
I'll go ahead, Jake.
Jake's face.
Man, you want me to start? I mean, listen.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's a tough matchup, man. I mean, look what Tennessee did. I mean, Tennessee.
I know. Yeah,
Tennessee, right? I mean, if you're a coach, you would say, let's bring in Hendon Hooker. Let's take it. I would love to have Tennessee's offense. If you're a coach, you would feel great about Tennessee's offense. Didn't look too good.
Yeah.
I saw what happened to Michigan last year too. That was a physical offensive line, a physical run game. The speed of that defense was and is at a high level. I really do believe, though, it's the same thing as what you're saying, Trevor. You go into the week with a rack of a couple openers and a couple openers for each situation. The importance on capitalizing there, because as an opponent going into the game how good Georgia is. And so does Georgia. And so does everybody in the stands. And that means something. So if you go 3 and out on series 1 and they score, even if it's a field goal, and then you get the ball back and you go 3 and out and you're really struggling, I know the conversations on those sidelines. You can see it in the look in your coach's eyes. You never quit. You never don't go out there and try, but you've kind of confirmed the belief. Exactly. The importance of starting fast. And it's kind of one of those subjective things, but the importance of starting fast, if you can convert a couple third downs, all of a sudden that same emotion you were feeling is pushed on Georgia, where they're saying, hey, we know who we are. We should be getting off the field, and we aren't. The first starting fast, those 10 plays and converting in situational football, it can start to even out some of those odds throughout the game. It's not going to be easy. There's no one that's going to be favored at playing that team. It's an excellent football team.
Trevor, what's the first play you call against this Georgia team?
So I've always had this debate. When I was a player, I had this debate with every offensive coordinator I played for.
Sure.
And it was always like, all right, why are we running inside zone the first play of this game? And they would give me an answer. Hey, why are we taking a shot the first play of this game? And they would give me an answer. And I haven't been able to figure out why or why not across multiple different coaches. Me, if I was calling the game in a big time game like this, I would lean on the preparation. What have they ran? What type of defense do they typically come out in? Is it base defense? And they're going to say, hey, we're going to come out in base defense, run whatever you want on us, and then we'll get into our stuff. Are they dialing it up on the first play of the game? What do the analytics say about what this team is? And I would just go on those percentages. And if it's 51% of anything, or if it's a majority of anything, my first play would be to attack that regardless. And I would tell my quarterback and my offense, hey, we're going to attack this, whether it's inside zone or a shot. It doesn't matter. This is the play that's going to work versus this defense. If it's something else, there's your check down. And check it down, and we'll move on down the road. Or, hey, if they don't give us the look for the inside zone, we've got run pass out here. Throw the quick screen and move on down the road. But I would go to the analytics of what do they run, and I would attack that regardless of what it is.
It's great. I'm glad you said that, because that's what Alabama did in the SEC championship game. Alabama knew that Alabama ran out vertical cross out of bunch. And then instead of doing that, Alabama decided to go shallow, over, and then in a sit. And then guess what? That over they're already working on towards the vertical. That's the Jameson Williams touchdown. That's what it was, because they were expecting him to go straight vertical, but instead he runs that deep bend, and they're like, "Oh no, we weren't expecting this. We can't stop it." And that's how that broke the floodgates for Alabama in the SEC championship game. So it was amazing football. What about Ohio State? I'm going to go to you first, Jake. What do you want to see your team do against Ohio State? How do you see them beating them?
I think the recipe is very similar to what you saw Michigan do last year, because what makes Ohio State so dangerous is CJ Stroud. It is Marvin Harrison Jr. It is an explosive offense. You don't try to play that game with them, because there's literally nobody in college football that's going to play that game better than they do. How do you beat that? First off, the best way you counter an explosive offense is by controlling the clock and elongating drives. We talked about weather earlier, especially in late November in Columbus or Ann Arbor, where it is chilly on the sideline and your muscles get tighter a little quicker. You know, in that that's a real thing. So if you can,
it sucks.
It sucks. And especially if part of your identity is getting up and going and pressing the issue on people, you know, if you can have 6 to 8 minute drives a couple times throughout the game, it's hard to overcome that. So offensively, winning first and second down, converting third down, elongating your drives, that's going to take away some of that speed, because when that offense is rolling, you can't catch your breath as a defense and as a team. And then I think this too, there's not a corner in the country that's going to line up with Marvin Harrison Jr. for 4 quarters and shut him down. And they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, his dad has been talking about coming back for the Michigan game. That tells you everything you need to know about that rivalry. The receiver room is so talented. So you don't go toe-to-toe with them. You go straight to the foundation. Same thing again that you saw last year.
Get to the quarterback.
And again, it's cold. And when a big D lineman's hitting you, Trevor, and he's landed on top of you, and
I was going to say, when he's laying on you,
I want to go home.
You're thinking about that, especially off your backside. Maybe you aren't stepping into the throw. Maybe you're getting rid of it a beat too fast. That's your best chance at doing it. You're not gonna have hold CJ Stroud to 130 yards passing. That's not the case. But can you minimize his success based on what he's been doing? Can you control the clock offensively? All right, now you got a pretty good shot at beating him.
So here's what I'm going to say. I think that controlling the clock is a symptom of a disease, and I think it's a good disease because it means that you're converting third downs. Against this Jim Knowles defense, how do you keep converting third downs?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So Jim Knowles, he's got a distinct identity of it's aggressive.
Cover zero.
Yes. And it means blitzes. And what you really want is a mature coordinator and a mature offensive line and a mature quarterback to get everybody on the same page to pick up the blitz.
Yeah.
First identify it and then pick it up. Those are 2 hard pieces in and of itself. And if you don't have the pieces there, then you need maturity from your running backs, tight ends, receivers to be hot, and everyone needs to be on the same page. And then you need to execute on the look that's given.
Now you're talking football to me, baby. Let's go.
And if you're Michigan, that's a very good offensive line and a veteran offensive line. And we talk about Blake Corum and his ability to run the football. He's PFF's highest rated, or one of the highest rated pass blocking running backs in the entire country. And running backs do not get anywhere near the credit they deserve in terms of pass pro. It's one of the most complex jobs in the game of football. So those things give you a really good chance. But getting to third and manageable is another thing, because when Michigan is 3rd and 6 and under, they will run that, and you have to account for it. They will pass it. JJ can carry the ball. The entire playbook is open. You can't just sit there and say, hey, this is their tendency. There is no tendency. They'll play the whole thing.
All right, Trevor.
So I think the answer is very different. How do you beat Ohio State is the question. I think the answer is very different. Are we talking about If you're Michigan, how do you beat Ohio State? Or if you're anybody else, how do you beat Ohio State? Because anybody else, I think we could answer it very similarly to Georgia. You got to create turnovers, which CJ Stroud doesn't commit very many of. You have to shut their run game down, which is stoppable.
That's doable.
That's doable. Make them one-dimensional and really help your guys out in the back end with how you scheme up and how you call your defense. Jake, you mentioned it. That receiving core, they're going to get wins. They're going to get open.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud's going to deliver the ball, but minimizing those big explosive plays is a huge key.
Can I ask you guys a question? I know we talked Heisman a little. We've talked a little bit of Heisman, but like Harrison has been the best player for this Buckeyes team, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen with him and Stroud for the Heisman? Are people just going to vote for Stroud because they vote for quarterbacks? Or are they going to be like, no, Harrison's been the best guy?
I think that if this was last year, where we were still at this point in the season, I mentioned this, I think, on our Saturday show, we were still calling for the entire Georgia defense to get invited to New York because they deserved the Heisman Trophy. Now, granted, Bryce Young ran away with it. He much deserved, and he's proven that this year. But I think this year you have a lot more guys that are playing at a Heisman caliber level. So to make it to where Marvin Harrison Jr. is not even in the conversation, even though he's having an incredible season. I mean, you've got 4 or 5 guys that just in the eyes of the voters are ahead of him at this point. You've got Bryce Young. You've got CJ Stroud. You've got Caleb Williams. You've got Blake Corum. Like at least those 4 guys, maybe a couple more, will get voted on ahead of him. That's not taking anything away from his production and his season.
But he's been the best player on that team.
Players. I think it's a better crop of players that will be represented in New York. I'd love to continue this conversation after we hear your thoughts on who may go to New York and why, because I think that's really interesting as well.
Come on, bring it.
I got the bottle of Woodford coming to you, brother.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, from that bet.
I don't think we had, and this is, you mentioned Thanksgiving being just like high stakes, amazing football. The fact that the Heisman Trophy winner has not yet distanced themselves makes these games coming up even better. Yeah. I think that you could see, depending on the Ohio State-Michigan game, that could be CJ Stroud's coming out party and he'll run away with it. Yeah. You could go out to the West Coast and see Caleb Williams beat UCLA, beat Notre Dame, and then win the Pac-12 championship. And maybe he is far and above ahead of everybody else. The fact that we are now with just a couple of games left in the season and there's so much ball left to decide the Heisman Trophy, I think is absolutely fantastic for viewership.
So I kind of, to talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., the issue is you're dependent as a receiver on other people, and CJ Stroud is. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
I was gonna say he makes him look so good though. Like some of these throws are just completely out of frame, and the catches that he's making are insane.
Yep. So which means the conversation is then dominated by, man, look at that pretty ball. Marvin Harrison Jr. Yes, he should be. I think he's like 10th maybe in terms of favoritism.
Sure.
Which means, okay, it's probably a quarterback. But Blake Corum, I seriously think has as good a chance of a non-quarterback as we've had in recent history because of that same reason. Michigan's offense isn't dependent on a quarterback.
Right.
If Michigan wants to go into Columbus and beat Ohio State, and you want to talk about the implications of that game on legacies, how do we talk about Jim Harbaugh? If he now has won 2 straight and does it in Columbus, how do we talk about Ryan Day in Ohio State? I've lived in Columbus. I know that conversation. Blake Corum would be the reason, in my opinion, if Michigan wins, Blake Corum's name is attached to that conversation, which the statistics matter, but that matters in terms like
that
the
gets Heisman moment.
City. Don't know what it is, but you know it when you see it.
So listen, you mentioned legacies, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna run down the rundown. What's Jimbo's legacy currently at Texas A&M?
Yeah, we were just talking about Heisman trophies, and you just went to the bottom of the barrel, Felder. And you guys set me up for this every show because you know I get hot about it, and it pisses me off.
I'm ready to hear it. I'm ready to listen.
Man, you're at 3 wins right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna play a 1-9 UMass team this weekend. You're a 33.5-point favorite, and the aroma is, yeah, I think we're gonna win. You know, I think so. I hope so. I mean, it's a 6-game losing streak. That's incredibly bad, incredibly bad. So game when we haven't won in 2 months, you know, and so then you got to go after that game. Let's say A&M wins. It's 4 wins. Then they got to go into the teeth of a really, really talented LSU team. And the way that A&M's been playing, I just don't have any confidence that game's even going to be competitive. So you're telling me year 5, Jimbo Fisher, massive contract.
Yep.
That you already missed a bowl game, and you're going to win 4 total games in a year that Desmond Howard came on preseason and said, A&M is my dark horse national champion. That's saying you dropped off hard. Now, I will say this. I still, and I know I'm gonna have to I'm not ready to give up on Jimbo yet. Whether it's the $86 million or whether it's how good his young crop of talent is.
Sure.
This year, unacceptable. I think he should and would admit that behind closed doors. But there is a lot of young talent there at A&M. The conversations will be had, though, this offseason, especially if they aren't competitive with LSU. And for sure, if they don't win this weekend against UMass, he's gone. They're going to find $86 million, and he's gone. But the conversations will be very, very prevalent in College Station with the big donors. Should we come up with it? Should we give him 1 more year? What are the stakes next year? Does he have to win 9 games, 10 games, SEC title, or he's gone? Those conversations will be had.
I remember preseason, it was always about next year. They always said, hey, 2023 is A&M's year. No one expected it to be this bad. Right. And my concern is, you know, the message gets stale, especially, you know, as a head coach that's pressing for success, but the success isn't there and the results aren't there. At some point, you know, you sit there and you look at your leader, whether this is right or wrong, it's just the reality. You say, I don't want to play for this guy. I don't want to hear it anymore. It's what you're telling us to do clearly isn't working. And I've seen it where like the locker room can just say, you know what? Done. Don't want to hear it. And that's my fear for A&M, where the promises have been made, the results haven't been given or delivered, and understanding next year is supposed to be the year, the talent is supposed to set up to make a real run next year. What do? You know, can he sell for 1 more year, not just to the athletic department and the boosters, but to his own locker room and his own staff, because this year really wasn't good enough.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I say this too? I think this needs to be said, and this by no means is trying to demean young people who are going out there and playing hard, but we put a lot of pressure on the coaching staff, and it is their job to win games, and they get paid the big bucks.
Yep.
But I truly believe that the gentlemen in that Texas A&M locker room that put on the maroon and white every week and go out and to battle and actually are in between the lines are capable of playing a lot better than they have.
Yeah.
Is Jimbo Fisher doing a great job as a head coach? You've got to say no, because he is the head man and, again, getting paid all the money. But where's the leadership? Where are the senior leaders? Where's your quarterback leadership? Where are the guys
where's your quarterback?
Locker room saying, hey, look, that guy is calling the plays, but he's on the sidelines. We're the ones on the field. We're the ones making plays. When is somebody going to step up and say, I'm sick and tired of watching us lose games? We travel to Auburn and we lose to a team that is horrible and has way more going on behind the scenes than we do. When are the guys going to step up? Jake, you know this. Felder, you know this. The best teams in the country at any level, in any sport, are the ones that the guys run the team. The players run the team. The coaches affect culture. The coaches affect scheme, all those good things. But the guys run the team, and you don't have that right now. And so I know Jimbo gets all the credit for the wins and the losses, all the losses this year, but it's the team too, man. I don't care if you're 18. I don't care if you're 22. You're a grown man, and you put on that jersey, and you're supposed to leave that jersey better than you found it. Go leave it better than you found it.
No, I think that's very well put. I think that's a thing that a lot of fans, a lot of media even don't think about. My favorite teams personally have been your Ed Reed Miami teams, where Ed Reed was like, listen, hey, this is how we do it. I love the Tyrann Mathieu LSU teams, where they're just like, hey man, you know what we do? We watch football all the time. And Nakobe Dean. And what Nakobe Dean was able to do a year ago with that team, you could tell that team watched film together, and they all watched film, and they all wanted to go and put it out. And then my least favorite team in the last decade is probably the LSU team, where Bo Pelini was the defensive coordinator, and people kept blaming Bo Pelini's system. And I was like, no, it does work. They just aren't doing it. They're not doing any of the stuff they're supposed to be doing. And so, no, I think I think you're spot on, Trevor. I think that's a real big part of it. And I don't know what you do though, but like you mentioned losing the message, Jake, and the message kind of falling on deaf ears at that point. We saw that happen at Georgia with Mark Richt. Saw it happen at Oklahoma with Bob Stoops. We've seen it happen a couple times but those guys were there for a long time. This has happened a lot quicker, and I don't know how you fix it. So this obviously isn't a thing that we're going to fix right now. So you know what? Let's go to the Pac-12.
Let's go to the Pac-12, please.
We can't fix it. Let's go to the Pac. Let's save Trevor. Let's go to the Pac-12. Oregon and UCLA both lose. Penix. Trevor, can I ask you about this? What do you think of Michael Penix?
Yeah, fantastic performance. Talk about just rising to the occasion, man. Like, career night for him. Gonna get to walk around Washington, Seattle for campus for the rest of his life and be like, hey man, remember that Oregon game? Like, dude, you balled out. Like, people will remember that performance because he was gutty, man. He played clean. It was just those are the type of games you love to watch, and especially from a quarterback play standpoint. It was awesome.
It was great. Jake, what did you think about this UCLA upset? Because I didn't see this one coming at all.
No, but I will say, so Jedd Fisch was my offensive coordinator.
That's why I asked you. Look at this.
He is a phenomenal football coach.
Yep.
And as we're talking about, messages being received, one thing I like about Jedd Fisch, football can be very complex or it can be simple. Oftentimes it's about the teacher. Jedd Fisch, man, I'll tell you what, any single guy on our offense in the two deep was able to play fast because of the way he taught the game of football. They are an excellent passing attack. Arizona was not good when he got there. Now first off, that was a huge upset. We've been talking about upsets throughout the year. They got a great offense. It was shocking. And now you look forward, though, because if we want to talk about the Pac-12 and we're talking about the playoffs, it's USC. USC plays UCLA this weekend. But I took a quote from Chip Kelly when he was talking about in the post game for Arizona's quarterback Jayden de Laura. He said, "This is what Chip Kelly said about Jayden de Laura." He said, "We ran into a good quarterback. He extended plays like no one we've played this year, and in fact, no one we've played since we've been here, going back to 2018." Who's USC? Who does USC have under center?
Caleb Williams,
Heisman guy we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
So that is not the quote I would want to hear if I was a UCLA fan trying to win this game this weekend.
Agreed.
I look at this, and obviously, here's the thing. I think that the Pac-12 is maybe the most interesting and intriguing conference as we get into the last 2 weeks of the regular season. But do we think they're going to make the playoff if it's not USC?
Can we talk about USC for just a quick second?
Sure.
Look at USC, potentially their next. Let's say they have 5 games left, and I'm going to lay them out for you. This could be like the craziest 5-game stretch of all time, with potentially a Heisman in between. In-state rival UCLA, Notre Dame.
Yep.
Then probably Oregon,
the
Pac-12 title game,
or Utah again,
which either one. Just Pac-12 title's gonna be crazy. Then if they win all 3 of those, which is already gonna be a gauntlet, now they potentially go to the college football playoff semifinal.
Yep.
And if they win that, they play for the national championship.
But they're playing what, Georgia?
Yeah. Like this, you talk about like, guys, I hope you guys are rested.
Georgia and then Ohio State.
Go for it. And if they navigate that, it's laid out for them. If they navigate that, they deserve to be in any.
Give Lincoln Riley $250 million.
250.
Give him
buy his dogs a $17 million house.
Exactly. If they do that.
Yeah, sure. If they navigate UCLA, Notre Dame, and then Utah or Oregon, and then Georgia, and then Ohio State, let's go.
It's unreal.
Unreal. This team is the problem is, who are they going to stop?
All right. So I thought about this one too.
Yeah.
Because when we talked about they have a bad defense.
Yes.
Or at least an average defense.
Oh, no. Hang on. No. I want to pull the number
What's their
up.
total defense?
They're 88th in total defense.
It's a bad defense. You're right. That's a bad defense.
They are between Wake Forest and Nevada.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's no. Okay. You know what? Here's the thing though. What Wake Forest and Nevada don't have, and what you have to have if you're a bad defense, is turnovers. They are 14th in the nation in forcing turnovers. They forced 20 total this year in turnovers game. That's almost 2 every game. And when you have a Heisman quarterback, once again, it's the same thing we talked about with Georgia. When you take away scoring opportunities and you put the ball in Caleb Williams' hands, that is points on the board for you, and you do it twice on average per game, you can overcome it. Enough to win a natty, to be determined. But it helps that defense, because that's not a good defense.
I think there's a humongous difference between forcing turnovers and getting turnovers.
Okay.
That's just, am I crazy for that? Like,
hey, but if you're doing it all season long and you're averaging that too,
well,
whatever. Put the ball in Caleb Williams' hands 2 more times a game in short field, or just another opportunity. That'll win you some games.
You're going to have the 88th defense. You better force some turnovers or get some turnovers or whatever you got to do. Just somehow, some way, don't let them score and get the ball back to your offense. Turnovers.
Now, here's the thing. They are being buoyed right now because they were number 1 in turnovers in September. Number 1 in turnover margin in September. 33rd in turnover margin in October. And then let me pull the number up for November. USC, Control F, 39th in November. So it's going downhill. Yeah. So it's
number 1. Okay, that's a big drop. It's a big drop. What's the separation though? What are they at 39, and what's maybe number 5 at? Maybe not even number 1. What's number 5 at? And what's
so here's what we got. We got, you know what? I got them right here. Rice, 4.
All right, that doesn't...
plus 4. Stanford +4. Okay. Fresno State +2, and +4 again against Oregon State. That's all September. So we got 4, 4, 4. That's 4, 4, 12. We're 14, and then there are 3
bad teams.
Okay.
three total for the rest in terms of margin.
Okay. But that turnovers gained, so they've also turned the ball over in that case as well.
Yes, they lost, turnover lost against Cal, turnover lost against Colorado. But it's the thing is they're not getting, those turnovers aren't coming listen, it's not easy come, easy go.
It's skewed by September.
September
the season statistics are skewed.
That's because that September, they had a huge September. But it's just listen, I like Eric Gentry as much as the next guy, but guess what?
So does Alex Grinch, does he need to be demoted?
I don't know, man.
He didn't perform at OU.
Yep.
He's not performing at USC.
Yep.
He better hope that he gets, I mean, is somebody going to come and get him a head coaching job if they win, because he needs it, because he's not producing what he's supposed to produce. But that's we could spend a whole show on that.
Yeah, I know. And guys, we cannot spend a whole show on the rest of this. We have to go. We got to go.
This is fun. This is when you get to speculate, because who really does know? Who knows?
I have no idea what's going to happen with him. Guys, make sure you check us out on the SiriusXM app. Obviously powered by Bet Rivers. For Trevor Knight, for Jake Butt, I'm Michael Felder. Thanks for tuning in to Field of